So following on from last weekend with Martin Pullman, I was kind of just meditating on the sort of theme and the scripture that he took for us. If you missed it last week, he spoke from Exodus 18 on Jethro's visit to Moses, who was his son-in-law, and how Jethro comes along and he sees Moses struggling. Because Moses is trying to do all the affairs of this nation of a few million people that have now come out of the bondage of Egypt, and they're on their way to the promised land. And Moses is trying to do everything. He's trying to lead. He's trying to manage. He's trying to judge and make good decisions. And everybody's bringing their stuff before him, and it's hectic. So Jethro comes along. He has a look at this, and he speaks to Moses. And as a result of that, Moses is able to transition in his leadership. It's part of what Martin was sharing, what he preached on. And that is that we go to the next level sometimes. We realize that the skills that have brought us thus far, the heart that has brought us thus far needs to change because the circumstances may change or whatever. And so Moses listens to his father-in-law Jethro. He's able to take on board into himself. He's able to learn. And the key word there was he said Moses listened to what Jethro had to say. As a result of that, he was able then to lead far better going forward. And I was kind of meditating on that this week, just kind of mulling it over, which has kind of flowed into the message that I want to share with you today. And it's this, that Moses would not have received from Jethro unless he saw Jethro and the comments that Jethro made and the help that Jethro brought as something that was of value to him. As something of value. That Jethro came with a good heart, his intentions were good, and he came with good advice that actually was going to help Moses in his leadership. See, if Moses had the attitude, like maybe some of us would have, my father-in-law, he's always meddling. He says he comes for a visit, but really what he wants to do is just check what I'm not doing right. And then in my ear. See, if Moses had that attitude, like who's Jethro anyway? He's not a Jew. He's not from the tribe. He's from Midian. He doesn't understand what I'm going through. If Moses has had that attitude, well, I don't know what would have happened. But he certainly would not have fulfilled his destiny and transitioned into what God had for him. Here's the key word that I want us to talk around today, and that is honor. See, Moses honored Jethro. He honored Jethro. In other words, he esteemed him of value. And what he had to say and his heart, and he esteemed him with value, and therefore he was able to receive. See, if you don't see something as valuable, if you don't honor something or someone in your life, you're not going to be able to receive from them. Does that make sense? So honor is actually key in the kingdom. Honor and honoring, to deem something of value or someone of value. The opposite is what we, I think, see in our world, where there's so much dishonoring going on. In fact, I think part of the reason why often as Christians we don't honor like we should is because we live in this world that dishonors like everything. Just everything is up for grabs. So if honoring is to deem something of value, dishonor is the opposite, to deem it of little value, of no value whatsoever. And so we mock, and we scorn, and we look down on, and we toss aside because we don't see it as valuable. And I think there was a time where when you entered into public service as a politician, it was a noble thing. You gave yourself to serve the people, to deliver and to manage the affairs of the country or the state or the municipality, whatever, well. As we've seen, unfortunately, not only in our country, around the world, politicians are a bit of a joke now. A bit of a joke. So that which should have been worthy of honor has become dishonorable. Does it make sense? So our attitude is that of mocking and scorn, and they're just useless. They're just in there for their own thing and all the rest. And there's just such dishonor. You see it in the family, the high institution of marriage that once was held sacred. The value of a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. You see it through Hollywood. You see it just portrayed as this, just dishonoring. Dishonoring of men, dishonoring to women, dishonoring of marriage, Dishonoring of things that should be sacred, that should be worthy of honor and value because they are valuable. Does that make sense? So we live in this society where mocking is just the name of the game. Everything's up for grabs. There was a time where religion, regardless of what that religion was honored and revered. It didn't mock you. If it wasn't for you, it wasn't for you. But there was an honoring. Not so today. Not so today. Religion, And so we live in this world where very little is actually honored. Very little is esteemed of value. Everything's just dishonored. And so it's not hard for that to permeate our own thinking. Yet in the kingdom, there is honor. In the kingdom, it's important for us to understand our responsibility to honor. In Romans chapter 12, in verse 10, just a short little nugget from Paul, and there are many others that we could go to. This one always just stands out for me. In Romans chapter 12 and verse 10, it just says this: "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves." Honor one another. There it is, in the kingdom. We love each other, we honor one another. What does it mean? It means to deem a person of value. To see somebody of value. Why are they of value? Because they're made in the image of God. And so my point simply this morning is just for us to just relook at honor and how important it is. Kind of piggybacking from last week, just take it maybe a step further. And how important honoring is in the kingdom. We're going to do two things. One, we're going to look at the life of Jesus because he is our example. He is the clearest example. He is the yardstick. He is the measure. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at how it works out in practice. How it just kind of practically works out. So let's have a look at the life of Jesus firstly. Jesus modeled honoring. He just did. He just modeled honoring. He came, he took on the nature of humanity, as you know. But in doing so, he lived a life of honor. Firstly, he honored his Father. Honored his Father. Everything he did following what the Father was prompting him to do. So he said, I only do what I see the Father do. So I've lived my life to glorify the Father. You can put that a different way. I'm living my life in honor of the Father. I'm honoring his wishes. I'm honoring what he wants. That's what I'm doing. That's how I'm living my life. What does it mean to follow Jesus? What it means to follow Jesus like Jesus followed the Father and honored the Father. To honor means to put first. To honor, to see of extreme value. And honor is the posture that I take if I deem something that valuable. So Jesus, in his whole life and ministry, put the Father first. Honored the Father's wishes in all that he did. Remember in Gethsemane, and he's praying, he said, Lord, if this cup could pass from me, but not my will, but yours. Put it a different way, that's honoring. You're not going to say that if you're not honoring. You say, it's not about me, Lord. Even in my most desperate hour, it's not about me, it's about you. Because you are of value. You are of value more than my wishes right now. Honor. In the way that Jesus treated his parents. Now, we don't have a lot of interaction between Jesus and his father, Joseph. Historians believe that Joseph probably died when Jesus was quite young. But we have some interactions with Jesus and his mother and his family and his wider family, just a few. It seems like in every instance, even though he was the Son of God, in a sense he was part of them, but not really part of them. He was different. In every way, he honors his parents. He honors his family. And that was obviously found in the Ten Commandments. Honor your father and mother. That's in the Ten Commandments right there. Honor, to deem of value and to treat accordingly. Honor. In fact, I think it's with our parents that we learn, firstly, how to honor, how to respect. Even though you might not like them or disagree with them, and it happens, especially when we're young and teenagers and so on, but we learn to honor. We learn to honor. And then how Jesus treated the religion, the history of Israel, Israel's traditions, and also the religious leaders. Now, you might say, but I mean, Jesus really was quite blunt with the religious leaders, which he was. You can be honest. He called them on their sin. He wasn't saying anything that wasn't obvious. They just tried to cover it all up. But even in the way that Jesus dealt with the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the rulers of Israel, along with Israel's traditions, was honoring. He fulfilled the law. Not once did he ever diss the law. He fulfilled and honored the law. Had he not, he would have ended up before Pontius Pilate a lot sooner than he did. But they battled to pin him down because he was honoring of the traditions of Israel and he was honoring of their leaders. And you say, but he did call them out and he challenged them, and particularly towards the end of his time of ministry on earth. I mean, he really went for the Pharisees and challenged them. Here's the thing. You can honor somebody and disagree with them at the same time. See, I think we messed that up. We somehow confused it, that if I call somebody out on their sin or say something that I'm not really honoring. Nobody has perfect parents, but we're called to honor our parents nonetheless. It doesn't mean that we gloss over or pretend or something like that. We can face something honestly and openly, but still be honoring. Can still be honoring. The Bible calls us to honor our leaders, to pray for our leaders. I don't know about you, but this last week, as load shedding has escalated and all the rest, to hear our president come out and say, actually, now we have an energy crisis in this country. We need to deal with it. I'm not going to be honest with you. I'm going to say, Mr. President, way too late. Way too late. This energy problem has been 15 years in the making. And I understand that you were the deputy and all the rest, but for 4.5 years now, load shedding has escalated, got worse and worse and worse. And here's the problem. For most of us, being in the dark at night or whatever is an inconvenience. You might say it's a major inconvenience, major, minor, it's an inconvenience. Here's the reality for small businesses. When they have perpetual load shedding and they cannot then meet their targets and all the rest, they have to lay people off. They've got to close their doors. Livelihoods are at stake. We know this. Sorry, Mr. President. Long overdue. I am disappointed. But it doesn't mean that I can dishonor him. I can be honest and say I'm disappointed. Because the reality is, in any sane world and reality, this should have been dealt with years ago. I'm glad he's dealing with it now. It's a little bit too late. Now, I can say that and still have an honoring posture. Does that make sense? I can still honor him. I still pray for him. He's still there by God, appointed, as we know what the Bible teaches us. You won't find me mocking Cyril Ramaphosa or any of the cabinet members because I don't think it's right that we do. They're put there by God to serve and to lead. They might be doing a not so good job, and we can say that, and we might want to call them on that, and we are well within our rights to do that. You can do all of that and still be honoring. Does that make sense? You can do all of that and still be honoring. The fact of the matter is we should not still be talking about an energy crisis in this country. There should be plans afoot. The plans, they're there. They've been there for a long, long time. Just get off your butt and do something about it. Cut the red tape, that we can move forward. See, we can do that and still be honoring. I pray for our president every day. And you should too. You won't find me mocking him. Because it's wrong. He's there put by God. So I pray for Cyril Ramaphosa. I have enormous respect for him. I think he's in a very, very difficult job. Sometimes we just got to say it as it is and say, it doesn't mean that we gloss over. Does it make sense? You still honor without glossing over and, I can't, I shouldn't say that. But, I mean, we can be honest, but we can still have an honoring posture. Does it make sense? Jesus was very honest with the Pharisees. He called them on their sin, but he still had a very honoring posture towards them. And then what's so remarkable about Jesus is he was honoring to all those that came around him, even to the least of these. He allowed children to come and sit in his lap when the Pharisees and other religious leaders would shoo them away. They were annoying. Why did Jesus do that? Because he deemed them of value. Why did Jesus spend time with the sinners and the tax collectors and so on? Because he deemed them of value. And in doing so, challenges us. Shows us how to treat people with value and honor and dignity and respect. It's all in Jesus. He is our model. He showed us how to do it. He showed us how to do it. In any context, even with Pontius Pilate, the ruler of that area, Jesus was respectful. He was honest. In fact, he was quite blunt in his responses to Pilate and the high priest, but he was respectful, honoring. So you and I can say our piece. You and I can be honest, but we can be honoring. And we can be honoring, and we need to be. Because here's the thing. Let's get practical. Let's look at how it works out practically. The reason why it's important for us to honor things that God values and the people that come into our lives, and as Jethro came into Moses' life to help him. The reason why it's important is because we grow and we mature in the kingdom through honoring. We grow, we mature in the kingdom, in our journey through honoring. Just as Moses, he was the leader of Israel. He could have easily said, Jethro, look, thanks very much, but actually, and he could have ignored him, but he receives from Jethro. He receives because he's honoring his father-in-law, and honoring what he says, he's able to receive it. He's able to receive it and then become the better leader that he needed to be in the new season that they were embarking on as a nation in the desert. And so, because Moses was honoring of Jethro, he's able to receive, and he listens to Jethro, and he puts into action what Jethro had called him to. And as a result of that, he's able to lead far better. And so here's the simple question, just as we look practically then. As we want to grow, we don't want to stay the same. We want to grow in the kingdom. None of us are where we are purely by ourselves. Like it's just you and God. Just you and God got to where you are today, whether it be in your business, whether it be in your stage of life, whether it be in your service in the kingdom, your gifting, your ministry, in the church or wherever. None of us got to where we are today in the Lord entirely on our own. It was just us and the Lord. Just me and God. Now He's just been there always, and He's just opened all the doors. No, God sent people into your life, into my life, to build into us, to challenge us, to stir us, to open doors, and the degree to which we honored and received from them is the degree to which we've been able to grow and move and minister. Listen, let me tell you something. I don't know if you gathered this from Martin Pullman last week. Martin Pullman was tough. He wasn't like a nice guy. I've had other mentors in my life that were nice. Martin wasn't nice. He's straight. So I was young, and when I was, he took me under his wing, and I was his intern for 2 years, and so on. I've told you stories of when I went with him a proposal, but he just no. I would at least give Kieran a reason. Kieran, no, because. Martin would just be happy with the silence. He'd just go, no. Flip, man. And so I remember there were times I thought, what the heck? What am I doing here? You know what? It was good for me. It was good for me. And Martin just helped establish me in ministry, because I learned quickly that he had my best interest in mind. He knew what he was doing. He really did. I didn't always like his ways. Sometimes I told him so. Didn't end well for me. But anyway, but I could have dishonored. I could have gone, I could do this better. Maybe I need to find another church. Maybe I need to, I know people, maybe you do too, who have, maybe been under a leadership, or I'm talking in ministry now, been under a leadership or a particular leader, pastor, and they just didn't like it. No, I don't like where this is going, and so on. And they decide, I'm going to move on and do my own thing. And that lack of honor ends up shipwrecking their own ministry. You've seen it, I've seen it. There's something about honoring. Moses was able to grow because God sent Jethro to help him. Had Moses not received that, he would have just stayed where he was, messing up, being overwhelmed. Moses would have been the first casualty in the desert, burnt out. I can't do this anymore. And we would be no good to anybody. David didn't get to be the greatest king of Israel purely on his own. Who anointed him? Samuel. The prophet Samuel comes along and he says, the Lord has shown me. And he anoints David the future king of Israel. David was a young boy. He was a shepherd boy at the time. David's thinking, who Who am I? Who am I that God would anoint me? Who am I that God, sometimes we're going to doubt and we go, but when we are able to honor those that God has sent into our lives, they catapult us into the future. They catapult us into the destiny that God has for us. All David had to do was to honor what Samuel was doing. And as a result of that, he comes into his destiny to ultimately become the greatest king of Israel. Later on, he enters into the service of Saul, the first king of Israel. Saul tries to kill him, and David flees for his life. 15 years, Saul hunts David down. You talk about a vendetta. You talk about somebody like wants to get you. For 15 years, Saul hunted David down in the desert. And the rest of the nation must have gone to pot, but Saul was going to get David. Twice, David encounters Saul in a cave on his own. And the opportunity is there. In fact, David's men who are with him say to David, David, now is your time. Get rid of Saul, ascend the throne. God's with you. What does David say? I will not do such a thing and touch the Lord's anointed. Firstly, David is honoring God. Secondly, he's honoring his king, even though the king is wicked and trying to kill him. See, honor is going to cost you. Sometimes honor is not going to be easy. Honor is just going to be nice. It's all going to work out. Sometimes it's costly. And David says, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to get ahead of God's purposes for my life. I'm going to honor God. I'm going to honor the king. I'll leave the rest up to the Lord. That's faith. You're going to be in situations where you're going to need to honor God first and foremost. Leave the rest up to him. Let him work it out. Matthew chapter 10, verse 41. Jesus is speaking. He says, whoever receives a prophet, what? Receives the prophet's reward. Goes on to say, whoever receives a righteous man, receives the reward of a righteous man. What does that mean? It means simply this. When you and I receive a prophet with honor, we receive the blessing that comes through that ministry. When you receive a righteous man as a righteous person to come and speak into your life, you receive the blessing that comes with that righteousness. Does that make sense? But when you diss that and go, oh, I don't know. You are dishonoring. You're not going to receive the blessing that comes with that word. When Rob and I were in Durban earlier this year, one evening we were chatting, a couple of the leaders had come around to the house. I don't think, Rob, you were there. And one guy we got into the subject of prophecy. And one guy said this. He said, I don't really get prophecy. He said, why would God reveal something to somebody else about me? He can just talk to me. In fact, that's the biblical way, that God speaks to you and me. Now, it sounds quite spiritual, kind of all right, except, though, that he's misunderstanding the ministry of the prophetic. Of course, God speaks to you, and God should speak to you first and foremost. But there are times where God is going to speak to somebody else about something in your life. And the very fact that God would reveal something to them, and they come to you and they say, by the way, I see this, and I know that I haven't shared anything with anybody about this, tells me right there and then God is in the house. And God is speaking to me through that person. You see, I could dishonor that and go, nah, I'm waiting for God to speak to me. Sounds spiritual, it's actually quite arrogant. Or I can receive the prophet and the prophet's reward. I've heard people say, yeah, these prophecies, God loves you. Read that in the Bible. The very attitude shows that you're missing the point. That's true. It is in the Bible. But sometimes somebody's standing in front of you just saying, I really feel that God wants to hear this. If you're willing to receive it, is it honoring? Honor or dishonor? It's all in your attitude. I can either honor that and receive it, or I dishonor it and I close it down for what God might want to do in my life at that moment. Does it make sense? And so I've really, looking back at my life, I realized that honoring has been key to my growth. Honoring and receiving those that God brought into my life, I didn't always agree with, but they came and they built something into my life And the degree to which I honored and I received as a result has helped me grow and become the person that I am. And the same is true of you. The same is true of you. I am inherently nervous around Christians that dishonor everybody around them. Yeah, I'm my pastor. No. And maybe God is coming and speaking to your life. Maybe He's wanting to mold you and shape you, and He's bringing people into your life, and you are not receiving it because you deem them of little value. Honor. It's a key to growing in the kingdom. It's a key to us. And it's a posture that we have. It's a posture that we see those around us, what God has given us, and people in our lives as honoring and worthy of honoring value. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you agree with everything and everybody. You understand the posture, the attitude that I see the people around me that God has given, people in my life that I can honor. I can receive them because they have been a blessing to me, and they've helped me, and they've moved me on in my life. They've contributed to who I am today. They continue to contribute. Does that make sense? Let's close with this. I know that for decades now it's probably been overdone, but movie Chariots of Fire came out 41 years ago, 1981. You know the story of two athletes at the time, true story, of two athletes at the time. They're both British. Eric Liddell, he was Scottish, and Harold Abrahams, who was a kind of nominal Jewish man. And they are the two fastest men in the world over the 100 meters. And so the Paris Olympics in 1924 are looming large, and so they both make the team for Great Britain, and there's a whole lot of fanfare. The whole movie is based around their two stories, the story of Harold Abraham and Eric Liddell. Eric Liddell was a born-again, very devoted Christian. He ultimately went as a missionary to China. He was captured by the Japanese and died in the Japanese internship camp in the Second World War. And he lived his life for Christ right to the end. That's his story and legacy. 1924, they pitted to run against each other in the 100 meters. And the final heat for the 100 meters, for which they've both qualified, is going to be run on a Sunday afternoon. And Eric Liddell thinks, I can't run on a Sunday. Sunday is the Lord's day. And I'm not going to run on a Sunday. Now, I know that, the Sabbath is holy. We keep the Sabbath. We've talked about it. It reminded us of it the last couple of weeks. Just as a side item, we're going to all decide what we do on a Sunday. But you're going to honor the Lord. Sometimes it's going to cost you. For him, God was number one. On Sunday, I'm not running on a Sunday. Because Sunday is for the Lord. The opportunity to prove himself to be the fastest man in the world over the 100 meters. No, I'm not doing it. Because it's on a Sunday. Everything that he had lived for and trained for. No, because God comes first. That's honor. That's honor. In fact, in the film, and this is true, you don't even have to fact check films from that age, and because that's all accurate. But you can, and the movie went into like the details of how it actually happened. There was a representative of the royal family that actually came to challenge him. He says, well, with due respect to the king, my highest allegiance is to God. Didn't run. So he forfeited his place in the 100 meters. Harold Abrahams won the 100 meters at the Paris Olympics in 1924. But there's another athlete in the Great British team that had already won an event in the relay. And he says to Eric Liddell, I will offer you my spot in the 400 meters. Now you can ask Andrew Kay, who coaches. You don't just like willy-nilly jump from 400 meters and say, no, just run another 300 meters, you'll be fine. You train. Just keep going. When you get to the 100-meter mark, just keep going. You'll be fine. For that matter, you could just, run the 800 meters, 1,500, just keep going. No. You train specifically for this. 100-meter athletes train for 100 meters. You see Usain Bolt, he's fast over 100 meters. After 110 meters, can't do it. Wait for kneecap. 100 meters, 200, 300. You train differently. So, just as a courtesy, true story, his friend offers up his place so Eric Liddell can run in the 400 meters. And they stand on the track. An American athlete comes to him. He puts a piece of paper in his hand. In the movie, this actually happened. Puts a piece of paper in his hand, and on the piece of paper is written. It's written in the old book, "Those who honor me, I will honor," says the Lord. Eric Liddell looks at the old book reference in the Bible. The reference is found in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 30. Eric Liddell takes that piece of paper in his hand. He runs the 400 meters, and he wins gold at the Paris Olympics in 1924 in the 400 meters, which was not even his discipline. Those who honor me, I will honor. The choice that you and I have is whether we want to live that life of honor, honoring God first, those that God has brought into our lives, or not. For me, I'd much rather honor the Lord, honor the people that He's given me, that I may grow and become who I'm meant to be in the kingdom, because we don't get there on our own. We just don't. God has designed it as such, that we learn and we grow from those people that we are willing to honor and learn from, and that add value to our lives.